Hello? All right, sorry about that, guys. We will start over. I do apologize. It's been a busy, we're live streaming straight from Colorado headquarters. And so we have we've got, I don't know, how many missionaries do we have here?
A lot. A room full.
The whole lot.
Yeah.
The building is full of laughter of children and all the conversations from people from around the world, from open and closed countries. So sorry about the audio issue. We fixed it. Hope you can hear us. Thank you. So today, for our fourth episode of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Places, we have Ralph Thompson. He's the Global Director of Africa, and his wife, Sandra, is not here with us, but he will be able to answer questions on that regard. So let's go ahead and let's start with letting our audience get to know you. So when did you and Sandra start with WorldVenture?
Yeah, that is a good question. Back in November of 2002, we were appointed with WorldVenture. So this coming November will be 23 years. And yeah, it's been hard to believe that much time has gone by.
And tell us about your history with us, and then tell us about your new roles.
Yeah, sure. So after we were appointed in 2002, took a couple years of partner development before we got to the field, which we served in Mombasa, Kenya for over 13 years. So during those 13 years, we were involved in church planting, leadership training. We served in our local church there in Kenya, and we were part of a multicultural church planting team as well that was focused on a very challenging neighborhood in the city.
Perfect. And what about, describe your new roles now.
Yeah, so I'll go back a little bit further. In 2018, when we moved back to the States, I took on the Muslim Initiatives Coordinator role, and Sandra started serving as a pre-field mentor, walking with our new appointees from their time of appointment until they reach the field. And for about a year and a half, I've been serving as the Least Reached Initiatives Coordinator. And just starting the beginning of this month, Sandra and I have stepped into the Global Director for Africa role, where we'll be overseeing all of our missionaries and all the various ministries across sub-Saharan Africa.
Awesome. So as we dig a little bit into your background so people kind of get to know you a little bit more, tell us how God worked through you when you and Sandra served in East Africa. I mean, as you said, you described it as a place of radicalism, drug abuse, and crime.
Yeah, so even before we arrived in Kenya, God had burned our hearts for Muslims. And I remember first arriving in Mombasa, we were with some friends. They were driving us through the city, showing us around. And I remember them pointing out this particular neighborhood, and they said, "That's the area you don't want to go to. It's dangerous. There's a lot of radicalism, and it's just not safe." And so knowing that we had been called to these specific people, our antennas kind of went up, and we were like, oh, okay. And so we decided to go to this neighborhood, and the neat thing about it is it's a very touristy area as well. So even though it has narrow winding streets and old Arab architecture, and you can go to the spice market, and it's just a fascinating place, there's also a lot of tourists. So we were able to take a tour through this neighborhood, and seeing for the first time women wearing their full burqas, and the men sitting in the shops, reading the Quran, thumbing their prayer beads. It really just touched our heart. And we had this overwhelming feeling of, God, who is going to reach these people? And so for that reason, we decided to go to this area every Friday purposefully on the Muslim holy day to walk the streets and just pray for this neighborhood. And of course, over time, you begin to develop relationships with people. You talk to the shopkeepers. In 2006, we had Alana, our third child, was born. And man, if you want to have some open doors for ministry, you got to have a baby, because everywhere we went, people wanted to see the baby, hold the baby. And it really opened a lot of doors for us. So just over time, through building relationships and letting people in this area get to know us, and just having them begin to trust us, really our burden and hearts for this area began to deepen. And then over time, we were able to join with other people that had a heart for this area, and begin praying about, Lord, what might you do through us collectively to see the kingdom of God come to this area. And so, long story short, we're able to start a community center with a coffee house and a reading room, and lots of different ministries that really sought to scratch where the people itch and help to address some of the most pressing needs of their community. And so today, that ministry is seeing many people, particularly people from that neighborhood, come to faith in Christ.
And I can see your passion for this ministry, which makes you ideal for a global director of Africa.
Yes.
So tell me, why Africa? I mean, what makes that continent so strategic?
Yeah, that's a good question. When you look at some of the key statistics and trends from recent years, first of all, Africa is the youngest continent. 60% of the population are under the age of 25. So very, very young. Number two, has the fastest growing population. Currently, the population is around 1.5 billion people. And by 2050, within the next 25 years, that population is expected to double. They have the highest fertility rate, with women averaging 4.2 to 4.5 children over their lifetimes. Number three, fastest rate of urbanization. So cities are just experiencing massive growth. And so a lot of these frontier peoples that were once hard to reach can now be found in these huge urban centers. Another statistic is has the second fastest economic growth, and then lastly, has the fastest growing church. So Africa now has the largest number of Christians out of any continent, approaching 700 million, making Africa the new epicenter of Christianity.
Now I've heard that the prosperity gospel is taken root as well.
That is very true, and that's one of the challenges that the church in Africa faces. So the reality is real, and so there is a huge need for theological education as well. But yeah, despite some of the momentum that Africa has been gaining, these are the type, and there's many other significant challenges that Africa faces as well. One of them being over a third of the population lives in extreme poverty. Another one is a third of the population, over 500 million people, are still considered least reached. So you have these huge people groups that are still virtually untouched with the gospel. People like the Fulani, the Wolof, the Maninka, the Jula, Swahili, Somali, the Makua, all these are huge groups of people virtually untouched with the gospel.
Wow. So Islam is the second largest religion in the world, getting quite close to Christianity in numbers, I hear. So some religions, including Islam, try to teach that it's the same as Christianity. So what do Muslims believe, and what makes it different?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the makeup of these 500 million least reached peoples across Africa, the vast majority are Muslims. And so one of the things that we have to figure out as we seek to reach them is how to understand them. And so taking the time to be able to learn about Islam, to understand their culture, to walk with them, to befriend them, you realize that although there are a lot of similarities between Islam and Christianity, there are huge significant differences at the same time. And so although I think for the most part Christians and Muslims agree with things like prayer, the importance of prayer, fasting, giving to the poor, all of these things are important, but when you really drill down, there's some significant differences of how we view some of these things as well. So although a Muslim will claim that they believe in Jesus and he is a prophet of God, they do deny his deity. And the belief as well is that he didn't die on the cross, where to the Christian, Jesus' death on the cross is the corner piece of the good news of Jesus. He came to this earth, he died, he rose again, and he lives today interceding for us all. So it's you'll often hear that in conversations as we're dialoguing with our friends. You'll hear, yeah, we're basically the same, aren't we? And it's like, well, there are some similarities, but yeah, there's also some major differences.
Yeah, when I went to visit a mosque down 2 hours away from me, they were showing a film to the tourists like us that were there touring their mosque, and they pretty much were saying that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important that we are gentle in our approach, because too often, and this could be true of both sides, for both our Muslim friends or for us as Christians, we can be so adamant that we're right that our approach could lack the gentleness and respect as Peter, the way the Apostle Peter put it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If someone wanted to serve in a majority Muslim country in Africa, what would you tell them and how to prepare?
Yeah, I would first of all encourage them to find Muslims in their area where they're living, in whatever context they're starting from. Just like Christians, there's a tremendous amount of diversity within Islam. And so I tell people the best way to learn about Islam is by talking to Muslims themselves. Books are important and books can help. Reading their holy books can help as well. But don't forget about actually talking to Muslims themselves and asking about what they believe. Tell me about your culture. What are the do's and don'ts? And that usually opens up some very wide doors for conversations.
Awesome. So as we talk and as we ask questions, you as the audience are welcome to ask questions in the chat. We welcome you that you're here, and we thank you for watching. So any questions in the chat, put them in. Any comments, feel free to. We'll try to get to them all today. So as we go on, what are you looking forward to in your new roles?
Yeah, so May we had the opportunity to travel throughout West Africa. And one of the highlights for us was just connecting with our missionaries in different countries. Some of these places are very remote and difficult to get to. Some of the climates are not very favorable. And you see how they are doing such a good job just serving the Lord day after day. And the relationships that they built, the ministries that God is using in order to impact lives. And so for us, that's sort of one of the highlights, is just to see how God is working and have an opportunity to come alongside, encourage our people, and help everybody feel encouraged, equipped, loved, valued, and appreciated. So,
And that is very much needed.
yeah.
So we do have a question or a comment.
Yeah, so Ben Warren says, "Hi Ralph," and he asks, "What would be the main strategic locations in Africa that you and Sandra would be traveling to on an ongoing basis?"
Yeah, hey Ben, it's so good to hear from you. I met Ben in Kenya years ago, so good friend. Yeah, so we will, some of the countries that we're in, we cannot mention, so those will be some of them, but we'll be in parts of West Africa, parts of East Africa, and parts of Southern Africa. However, we want to think more broadly than just where we're at, right? Jesus said in Acts that we should go to our Jerusalems, our Judeas and Samarias, and to the ends of the earth. So what does that look like for the African church? Who are their Jerusalems, Judea and Samarias, and to the ends of the earth? So of these 500 million least reached peoples across Africa, you'll find them in primarily in four regions. First of all, you have North Africa, of course, where many of us are aware of that. Then you have this whole area called the Sahel, which is where the Sahara Desert meets the very humid savannas. And then you have, on the east side, you have the Horn of Africa, and then many of the coastal regions and islands are where the majority of these least reached people are. So even as we serve and we walk with our missionaries to impact these people, we have to rethink not only our strategies in light of all these statistics of how fast the African church is growing, but even thinking more broadly about, okay, where are the people that need Jesus the most, and how do we reach them? How do we partner with the African church in order to reach these people?
Awesome.
So.
Thank you, Ben. And there's another one?
Yeah. Jay Reagan asks, do you think it would be good when having a dialogue with a Muslim person who states Jesus didn't die on the cross to ask them, why do you say that or think that?
Yeah, I think that would be a good counter question to find out where they got that from. One of the things so I love Christian apologetics. So like I'm wired to be able to answer objections and even polemics, to ask them hard questions to challenge their faith. But I realize an approach that might be more beneficial is if they're willing to study scriptures for themselves, then oftentimes through reading of the Gospels and hearing the stories of Jesus and seeing the wisdom that he had in how he interacted with the religious leaders, often it becomes a much more powerful tool than the sparring matches and going back and forth. So you can drill down into the nitty-gritty when you're getting into some of these differences, whether the deity of Christ or whatever it might be. Their claim perhaps that the Bible's been corrupted is another common objection you'll hear. But if they're willing to sit with you maybe once a week and have coffee together and dig in, then that tends to be a better approach and bear more fruit.
Amen.
Great question.
We've also got a question from Richard Hart, who says, thanks for the conversation. How can we connect friends in South Sudan with WorldVenture?
Yeah, that's a good question. Hey, Dick, it's great to hear from you. Dick, if you want to reach out to me directly, we can talk about that. Find out, we have people that we can connect them with in surrounding countries, and we would be happy to do that. So, Dick, if you or anybody else want to email me, I'm happy to give my email address. We could have Ryan put it in the chat. It's r.thompson@worldventure.com. Yeah, I know South Sudan right now is a very challenging place. There's instability and security issues, and the church in Sudan is, going through very difficult times right now.
So thank you everyone for your questions. Keep bringing them on. So tell me, what other stories in your trip to Africa did you see as God working through our people?
Yeah, so one story I could share just from our trip to Guinea in May. First of all, to get to our team in Guinea, they're in the northern part of the country, so very remote. We had to take a 9-seater Cessna airplane from the capital along the coast to get to the northern part of the country, and a humanitarian flight. So that was interesting, just to fly in a very small plane to get there. But our team there is doing a great work, a variety of ministries, both coming alongside the local churches there in Guinea. They also have a medical ministry, and they have a wonderful missionary community that they're part of, which has representatives from Korea, from Ethiopia, from Switzerland, from the US, Nigeria. And so it's a beautiful picture of the body of Christ, seeing all these different nationalities serving together. But one day they took us to the village, and where they have their friends who are Swiss missionaries have a medical clinic. And so we were able to see this clinic and see all the people from the village coming to get medical treatment. And the elder of the village took us for a tour around the village. And it was so sweet just to walk around. As he's pointing everything out, during our walk, the kids would just flock to you. And so we started with a few kids just walking around the village, and by the time we were done, there were probably 30 kids that were clamoring around us and trying to hold our hands as we would walk. So I have 2 kids on this side and 2 kids on this side trying to hold my hand, and it was so sweet. But just to think that in this entire village with these hundreds and thousands of unreached Maninkas, there's only one believer, just broke our hearts. And so, as Jesus said, the harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And that's one thing that our team in Guinea is asking for, is for more laborers to join in the harvest. There's so many open doors for people to come and get plugged in and serve there.
So let's go into that a little deeper. So what are the opportunities available?
Yeah, I mean, specifically for Guinea, they're really needing a teacher. So for all the kids in this missionary community, they've started a co-op where one of WorldVenture missionaries is leading that co-op and teaching, but she's short-staffed. She needs more help. And so she's really asking, and the team is really asking for somebody that could come and help teach all of these missionary kids from all over the world, really, so that the parents can continue the work that God has called them to in doing ministry to these people. So that's just one of many, many opportunities.
Oh, you can share some more if you'd like.
Yeah, I would say, so you can go to the WorldVenture website. If you go to the Explore tab, you can search by country, you can search by opportunity. But I would say, even if there's not a ministry that you find on our website, if you have a passion and a heart for missions and you want to serve, let us know, because it's not just a job description that we're looking to fill. We want to have people who are passionate about making disciples among all the nations. So if you love people and you want to make disciples, let's talk, and we can see how you can get plugged into a number of different contexts that might be a fit for you. So yeah, there's a lot out there, but I don't want people to think that there's only a job description that they have to fill. We can find a place for you.
Yeah, so if you go to worldventure.com/go, if you complete the form, that's not a commitment to go, it's just completing the form to get some minor things out of the way. You'll be connected with someone you can ask questions to and explore and start the process to think about where your place might be in God's global mission in Africa.
Yeah, and I'll just say, just to add to that, several of our teams are only 1 and 2 units. And so many of our countries, we really want to focus on building those teams up and getting them more workers and growing the team and expanding our gospel impact in these very strategic places. So yeah, that's just something else that I think as we pray toward, as Sandra and I begin praying about our new role, we want to help to mobilize more people to these smaller teams and help grow them.
Are there any new fields that you guys are looking at opening?
Not currently.
Okay.
Not currently, but one thing that we want to begin talking about is, in light of the growth of the African church, how do we deepen our partnerships with them, not only to mobilize Western missionaries, but to mobilize African Christians? And so what might that look like? And so you have these 4 areas that I mentioned where the majority of these least reached people are. So how do we help and partner in sending African Christians to, say, North Africa or to the Horn of Africa? What does that look like? So these are all regions that are very strategic for that reason. But we're in many of them already, but we need to grow those teams. And even some of the fields that I can't mention, very, very strategic, massive need, massive opportunities, but we need more workers in those areas.
Yep. So we've heard about Islam, but maybe you can give, I know that Africa can have a lot of other things. So what is the spiritual landscape of some of the countries in Africa where our workers serve other than Islam?
Yeah, that's a great question, because animism is very prevalent across Africa. And one of the reasons Islam has done so well in Africa is because as Islam came in, the animistic peoples were able to dovetail their animistic beliefs with Islam. So now you have this form of Islam that is very, some people call it folk Islam. So belief in the spiritual world is within Islam, they call it jinn, these spirit beings. When we were in Kenya, oftentimes our Muslim friends, if bad things were happening, they would go to the man of power, and there was a whole ritual in which the man of power would conjure up the jinn within that person to find out really what they've done to tick the jinn off and why they're making life miserable for them and what they need to do in order to appease them, and which would often require some kind of sacrifice or blood, or really pact with the jinn in order for them to ease up. So this whole animistic mentality is connected with Islam and even Christianity. There's so much syncretism within Africa where a lot of these beliefs carry over into even the Christian faith. So those are some of the challenges as you begin talking to people about their religious beliefs.
So are there any short-term opportunities available, and how do people apply?
Yes, there are many short-term opportunities. We'd love to talk to you about some of those. I think most of our countries, we're in about 11 countries across sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, we're in other parts of Africa too that we can't talk about. But yeah, almost every one of our countries would be willing to host short-term workers in order to give people that mission exposure and help introduce them to ministry in the African context. I know for me, in 2001, it was actually right after September 11th, I took a vision trip to Kenya for the first time. And people thought we were crazy for going on an airplane a month after September 11th, first of all. But just for me, seeing Africa for the first time, you're driving down the road in the capital, seeing these massive slums, people bathing in a dirty mud puddle, and these types of things just break you. And it changes your entire perspective on life. So I'm a firm believer in short-term missions, but of course, hopefully with the end goal of getting more long-term missionaries as well. So good question.
So what workers specifically need support, if you can think of any, and describe where they serve?
Yeah, that's a good question because we're still very new to this role. We're still getting to know all of our workers and learning about their financial situations. I think I would say there's probably few that are fully supported. So I think most of us need more support. So yeah, there are huge opportunities in that realm as well of just partnering financially with our missionaries across the continent.
So if you look onto worldventure.com, and as Ralph said, you can look under workers, and you can see under Africa, you can see all the different workers that are public facing that you can take a look at as well to explore what's going on there. But you can also look at projects, and you can also look at all those other things to see where you most fit. But let's talk about you. So what's your support at right now?
Yeah, right now, because of our higher budget, because we're going to be traveling throughout Africa, we're about $1,400 a month short in our support. So we're praying that as we step into this new role, that more people might be willing to partner with us financially. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So if you feel like giving $10, $50 a month, $25 a month, or whatever's on your heart, you can click on the link that Ryan has put in the chat for you, or you can scan the QR code and go ahead and become a financial partner so that Ralph and Sandra can continue to support the workers that are out there and can continue to make those trips. So how can people pray for you and Sandra in your new roles?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing so the global director role is, we've always seen it as very, very heavy, and we've had a ton of appreciation for all of our global directors because of all that they have on their plate and all their responsibility. So Sandra and I are really asking for prayer for wisdom and discernment as we step into this role. As they say, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yep.
And so we're learning. We want to learn. We want to grow in this role. We want to be an encouragement to all of our people in caring for them, in carrying out strategic ministry across the continent. What does that look like? Really our vision is to partner with the African church to reach the least reached. So what does that look like in each country? That's going to be different. So we need a ton of wisdom and discernment as we step into this role. And of course the finances, as you said, there's always it costs money to do ministry.
It does.
And so we're praying for that aspect as well.
All right, so you heard all those prayer requests. I hope you wrote them down. As we close out our time, this is your chance. If you'd like to leave some comments or ask a question in the chat, if any of you are praying now for their prayer requests, if you could leave it a prayer emoji or write in words for expressing your prayer, that would be of great encouragement to us. So as you think about Africa and the strategic value of it, any last words?
Yeah, I think in light of how God has been moving across Africa, there has never been a more ripe time for, hopefully I've answered the question why Africa and given some concrete reasons. So as the Spirit of God moves, really we're just excited and hopeful about how to partner going forward and see the gospel come to all the areas and all these unreached people groups across the continent. So we're also so excited to work with our people, to get to know them better, to walk with them on the ground, to see their ministries, to pray with them and support them in the work that God is doing in and through them.
Awesome. So if all of you on our YouTube accounts, and on our social media, we have posted videos filmed directly from Africa in some of the countries, and it's possible that more will be released. So you can keep following our social media to see those updates about Africa and even about the Thompsons. So if there's not any other questions, we will close out our time today. We thank you for coming. One of the things I'll remind you, tomorrow is our last live stream this week, and we're featuring Dr. Jeff Denlinger, the president of WorldVenture, and he'll be talking about ordinary people, extraordinary God. So I hope you'll join us for that. In the past few days, on Monday, we had Rich Peterson, who talked about sending ordinary people. We had Brandon Cossey, who talked about mentoring and discipleship and cultivating missions in people. And yesterday, we had Dr. Rick Griffith, who talked about the biblical viewpoint of risk. So before we end our time, Ryan, was there any other comments or questions?
There was no more questions. We have lots of people saying that they're praying and thanking you for what you're doing in Africa.
Yeah, thank you all. We really appreciate you joining us and your prayers.
All right, we will see you tomorrow during our live stream. Thank you, everyone.